Hey cousins, what's up and welcome back to Cooking with Hannah Soul. This week we are making a southern classic and I'm talking about that smothered pork chop. Now, I don't really even eat pork too much because I wholeheartedly believe bacon is its own meat. Y'all can fight me on this if you want to. But every once in a while, I need a good old smothered pork chop in my life. And I promise you, after this recipe, that pig ain't gonna owe you nothing. All right? Now, before we jump in, I'm gonna give you a little bit of time to hit the subscribe button as well as the notification bell. So now that that's done, let's jump right into it. And we're gonna take a full onion and just thinly slice it. And then we're gonna go ahead and work on our flour mixture. Now for this recipe, we're gonna be using equal parts of cornstarch and flour. So I use 1 cup of cornstarch and 1 cup of flour. Then I just mixed it all together and then we're gonna go ahead and season it up. For this, we're gonna be using 1 teaspoon of each of Lawry seasoned salt, garlic powder, onion powder, paprika, and nature seasoned all blend. Now once we have all of our seasonings in there, we're just going to go ahead and combine everything. And guys, I am being very careful not to overly season any part of this recipe because we are seasoning every layer. We don't want salty food. Nobody trying to get that good old high blood pressure. We don't do that. So next thing, we're going to make sure our pork chops are completely clean and then we're going to make sure that they're dry. So just go ahead and get a paper towel and completely soak up any water or wetness that is on your pork chop. Then we're just going to go ahead and season it. Now, I am eyeballing it. I've been cooking for a little bit, so I don't necessarily need measurements, but I can honestly say if you need it, go ahead and take a teaspoon of your Lawry seasoned salt, your garlic powder, onion powder, paprika, and black pepper, and season both sides. So now that we have all of our meat seasoned, we're just going to go ahead and coat it in our flour mixture. Now guys, if you watched any of my previous videos, you know that I like to press our coating, our batter, whatever the case may be, into our meat to make sure that it's adhering to all sides. So make sure you do the same thing for this one and then repeat for each one of your pieces of your pork chops. So guys, while we were doing that, I went ahead and put 4 cups of canola oil into a cast iron skillet, brought the temperature up on medium-high heat so that it was ready when our pork chops were. We tested the oil and then dropped baby girl on in. Now, I want to let you know cast iron skillets, although they cook and distribute heat evenly, they can also burn really quickly. So we want to make sure that we're watching our pork chops really closely. So we're tossing throughout. And we are not going to be bringing these to complete temperature because we're also going to throw them back into that gravy closer to the end of the recipe. So we're going to be cooking these for about 3 minutes on each side. And also, it matters how thick your pork chops are. So make sure you're watching your pork chops based on the ones that you have. So once baby girl gets to that pretty sun-kissed golden melanated complexion that we like, that'll make anybody look at this pork chop and say, now that's a good ass pork chop. We go ahead and get her up out of that grease and we drain her on a paper towel. We do want to make sure that we're removing excess oil because we don't need it for this recipe. Now guys, I did have a little bit too much oil in my skillet to make gravy, so I did go ahead and remove over half of it. And then once I got it to where I needed it to be, I went ahead and added my onions. So I'll probably have about 1 cup of oil in my skillet. We're going to let our onions cook for about a minute or 2 before adding in our flour to begin our roux. We are using equal parts the same way we did our flour. 1 cup of oil, 1 cup of flour. Go ahead and start the stirring process for your roux. So I do know that many people tend to get a little bit intimidated by gravy, but I promise you, no matter what you do to gravy, we can fix it. So if you feel like it's too oily, you add more flour. If you feel like it's too thick, you add more water. But I promise you it's going to be okay. So once we got our roux completely combined, we're going to go ahead and now start adding our water in. And we're going to do it a cup at a time so that we can completely combine it and see what we need. So I am adding in total, I did add about 6 cups of water to my roux. But I did do it over time because I like to let my gravy start to thicken up a little bit, and it tells me what it needs. So guys, I can't stress it enough. One of the key elements to a good gravy is all in the wrist. You got to stir that baby on up. So we want to make sure that we're stirring consistently throughout the process because we don't want it to burn, and we don't do clumpy gravy. Now, once we have it completely combined, we're going to go ahead and season it up, and we're going to start with as little seasoning as possible and work our way up because we can't take it back out. So you're doing 1 tablespoon of seasoning salt and then 1 teaspoon of each garlic powder, onion powder, paprika, and black pepper. And then the star of the show for this gravy, you are going to toss in 1 teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce. Now, as I always say, guys, your palate is your best ingredient. So this is something that we want to taste as we go, so it tells us exactly what it needs. So after tasting mine, I actually just went ahead and repeated the whole seasoning process again. 1 tablespoon of seasoning salt and then 1 teaspoon of each garlic powder, onion powder, paprika, black pepper, as well as the Worcestershire sauce. Now that we're happy with our seasoning and where we have our gravy flavor at, we're going to go ahead and now it's time to drop our baby girls back on in so they can get a little bit of gravy love. So go ahead and drop your pork chops back in, and we're just going to let this simmer over medium heat and let it thicken up. So guys, once your gravy gets to the consistency you like, we are done. And I promise no fancy plating this week, but I did have some rice that I cooked up a little bit earlier because who eats smothered anything without rice? I promise you it's a sin, and don't tell me about it, all right? So I went ahead and plated and made sure to put a little bit of extra gravy loving all over my plate. But as always, make sure you hit the like, comment, and subscribe button, as well as the notification bell, so you can meet me here every Thursday when I drop a new video. As always, guys, I had such an amazing time making this video for you. I hope you enjoyed. And remember, success is your birthright, and I want you to go out there and get it. Until next Thursday, Soul Family.